My parents dismissed my student achievement gala that morning, telling me to stop dreaming as they grabbed their car keys, insisting they had to drive 2 hours to Quincy to console my sister Amy, who had gotten into yet another screaming match with her deadbeat boyfriend. This was the third time that month. I stood alone on that stage at the Fairmont Copley Plaza Ballroom, accepting both the Academic Excellence Award and the Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford University, while they sat in Amy's cramped studio apartment, probably listening to her cry about some boy who couldn't hold a job. My father's former mentor, Dr. Jonathan Whitmore, who now served as Dean of Boston University, took a photo of me holding the Crystal Trophy and the scholarship certificate, then posted it in my dad's corporate WhatsApp group with the caption, "Richard, you must be incredibly proud. Victoria is the first student in 30 years from our program to receive the Rhodes. Exceptional young woman you've raised." My phone exploded with 47 missed calls from my father that evening, but I was far too engaged at the private celebration dinner that Dr. Whitmore had organized, sitting directly beside the same man my father had spent decades trying to impress, who was now offering to write me a personal recommendation letter for Harvard Law School. The ballroom had been packed with Boston's academic elite, university presidents, former Rhodes scholars, and corporate leaders who funded these scholarships. I had walked up to that stage in the dress I'd bought with my own money from working 20 hours a week at the university library, while my parents were probably buying Amy another overpriced latte to calm her down. The selection committee chair had called my dissertation proposal on international corporate law the most sophisticated work we've seen from an undergraduate in recent memory. Everyone applauded. Everyone except the two people who should have been there. Dr. Whitmore had approached me immediately after the ceremony, his distinguished silver hair and sharp blue eyes showing genuine warmth. "Victoria, I had no idea Richard's daughter was you. He and I go way back. He was one of my brightest students 30 years ago." He paused, studying my face. "Though I must say, you've surpassed anything he accomplished at your age. Where are your parents? I'd love to congratulate them." I kept my smile perfectly composed, years of disappointment having taught me excellent emotional control. They had a family emergency. My sister needed them. The lie tasted bitter, but it was cleaner than the truth. Something shifted in Dr. Whitmore's expression, a flash of understanding that told me he knew exactly what kind of emergency would make parents miss this moment. "Well then, you'll join me for dinner. I'm hosting a small gathering for this year's scholarship recipients at Duzav. Several Harvard law professors will be there. I insist." That dinner changed everything. While my phone vibrated continuously in my purse with my father's increasingly frantic calls, I sat between Dr. Whitmore and Professor Catherine Morrison from Harvard Law, discussing my plans for Oxford and my eventual legal career. Professor Morrison, a formidable woman in her 60s who had argued before the Supreme Court, seemed fascinated by my research interests. "International corporate law with a focus on family business succession disputes," she mused. "That's quite specific for someone your age. Personal interest?" I smiled, taking a sip of the wine Dr. Whitmore had ordered. "You could say I've had a front row seat to certain family dynamics that inspired my academic focus." Dr. Whitmore laughed, not knowing how literal I was being. "Victoria has that rare combination of brilliant analytical mind and practical wisdom. Richard must have passed on his strategic thinking." "Perhaps," I said softly, watching my phone light up again with my father's name, call number 48. "So I've learned that sometimes the most valuable lessons come from observing what not to do." The table grew quiet for a moment, but Professor Morrison's eyes sparkled with approval. She leaned closer. "I like you, Victoria. When you return from Oxford, look me up. I might have a position in my firm for someone with your particular insight into family dynamics and corporate law." Break Tikok. As dessert arrived, my father's 50th call came through. This time I answered, putting the phone on speaker so softly only I could hear. His voice was panicked, desperate, nothing like the dismissive tone from that morning. "Victoria, where are you? We need to talk. Dr. Whitmore posted your picture." The entire executive team at Brightwell Consulting saw it. "My boss called me. Everyone's asking why I wasn't there for my daughter's Rhodes Scholarship. Do you have any idea what this looks like?" I watched the candles flicker on our table, surrounded by people who had celebrated my achievement while my own parents had chosen to miss it for my sister's recurring drama. "I'm having dinner with Dr. Whitmore and some colleagues. I'll be home late." "Don't wait up. Victoria, please. We made a mistake. Your mother is sick about it. We can fix this." "I'm sure you can," I said, my voice perfectly pleasant. "You've always been good at fixing things that matter to you." I hung up before he could respond, turned off my phone completely, and returned my attention to the table where Dr. Whitmore was sharing stories about Oxford. He caught my eye and smiled, raising his glass slightly in a private toast. Something in that gesture told me he understood far more than he was saying. What my father didn't know yet was that Dr. Whitmore sat on the board of Brightwell Consulting, the very company where my father had been desperately angling for a senior vice president promotion for the past 3 years. And what neither of my parents knew was that their choice that morning had just shifted every power dynamic in our family in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The next morning, I returned to my parents' house in Brookline to collect some belongings before moving into my new apartment near campus. My mother, Patricia, sat at the kitchen table with red-rimmed eyes, while my father paced near the window, his phone clutched in his hand like a lifeline. Amy sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone, completely oblivious to the tension. "Victoria, sweetheart, we need to talk about yesterday," my mother began, her voice trembling with what I recognized as performative guilt rather than genuine remorse. I set my coffee coffee mug down with deliberate care. There's nothing to discuss. You made your choice. Your sister was in crisis. My father interjected, his executive voice faltering. She needed us. I looked at Amy, who hadn't even glanced up from her phone. Amy, what was the emergency yesterday that required both parents to drive 2 hours immediately? She finally looked up, confused.